The unknown story of Prithvi, rise from 5 lakhs to global success. Prithvi was not born rich. He was not the son of big businessman. He was not someone who had connections in the world of money. He had just an ordinary boy born in middle class family in a small Indian town. His father was a government clerk, his mother a homemaker. They lived in a small two-bedroom house where every rupee mattered. For most of his childhood, Prithvi saw his parents struggling with bills, school fees, and medical expenses. He grew up hearing the word like save money, don't waste, we can't afford this. But there was one thing about Prithvi that he was different. He always dreamed big, even as a child. When others killed wanted toys or chocolate, Prithvi wanted to know how shop earned money, how factory worked, and why some people became rich while others stayed poor. He had a deep hunger to rise, not only for himself but for his family who sacrificed everything for him. The real turning point came when Prithvi was in his late teens. One evening, his father returned home after a long day of work, looking more tired than ever. His father asked a letter in his hand. It was from the government office saying his retirement was near. His father said, Prithvi, after retirement, we will only have a small pension. Life will be hard. I wish I had done something more when I was younger. That sentence pierced Prithvi's heart. He realized that if he did not change his path, he too would live the same story, working for someone else, depending on salaries, and never building something of his own. That night, Prithvi decided he wouldn't not follow the normal route. He would build a business, he would take risks, he would create a different life. The 5 lakh rupees. When Prithvi finished college, he did not have much money, but his parent had saved a small amount for him. His mother gave him her gold bangles, and his father broke a fixed deposit. Together, they managed to give him 5 lakh rupees. It was all they could afford, and for them, it was everything. They gave it to him with trembling hands, saying, Prithvi, this is your start. Use it wisely. Prithvi felt both excited and scared. 5 lakhs was not small amount, but in this world of business, it was nothing. Still, he promised himself that he would turn the seed of money into something big. He promised his parents that one day they would live with pride, not with worry. Prithvi had many ideas. He thought of starting a cafe, an online shop, a garment business. He read books about entrepreneurship, watched interviews of successful people, and filled notebook with plans. But every idea ended more money than he had. For weeks, he walked around the town, visiting markets, watching what people bought, and thinking about gaps he could fill. Finally, he saw some people but powerful in his town. There were many small shops selling plastic household items like buckets, chairs, containers, but people often complained about their poor quality. Prithvi thought, what if I bring better quality in products at a fair price? What if I build trust by giving warranty, someone not else giving them? It sounded small, but it was something he could start with 5 lakh rupees. And so he made the bold decision he would start a small trading business in household products. Prithvi rented a small shop. The rent itself took away a big part of his capital. Then he wanted to do the wholesale markets in city, carrying heavy bags of wood bag to his small store. He painted the shop himself, cleaned the fold, and wrote the name board with his own hands, Prithvi Traders, quality you can trust. But the first few weeks were very much painful. Hardly any customer came. Most people still went to the old shop they trusted. Some even laughed, saying, he's just a young boy. What does he know about business? At night, Prithvi sat in his empty and shop staring the unsold products, tear in his eyes. His savings were shrinking, rent was due, and fear crept into his eyes. There were days when he thought of quitting, but then he remembered his parents' faces when they gave him 5 lakh rupees. He remembered the tired eyes of his father and the silent hope of his mother. He wiped his tears and told himself, no, I am not quitting. Is this option? I will fight. One day, a lady entered his shop. She was looking for a strong bucket that could last stronger. Prithvi smiled, explained patiently about his products, and even offered a small guest guarantee. If it breaks in 1 year, bring it back and I will replace it for free. The lady was shocked. No one in the town had given such a promise. She bought 2 buckets. A week later, the lady returned, not to complain but to buy more. She told her friend, and slowly word spread. Prithvi's shop began to attract the loyal customers. People loved the honesty and the service. His sales slowly grew. From earning 1,000 a day, he went 5,000 a day and sometimes even 10,000 a day. For the first time, he felt a small spark of success. But success brings problem too. The other shopkeepers in the market saw the rise and became jealous. They spread rumors saying his products were fake. One of the closest friend who had promised to support him betrayed him by opening a similar shop just 2 lanes away. Using the tricks of Prithvi had shared in his confidence. That betrayal broke Prithvi's heart. He could not understand why people he trusted could turn against him, but he learned one of the hardest lessons of business. Not everyone will be happy with your success. Someone will try to destroy it. Instead of fighting back with anger, Prithvi chose to fight with quality. He doubled his efforts, improved his service, and kept his promises to customers. Slowly, people saw the difference and shop became more trusted in area. Sleepless night. The growth was there, but it was also slow, and slow growth meant low profit. Every night, Prithvi lay awake wondering, is this enough? Can I really make something big out of this? Or I will just remain a small trader in a small town? He dreamed of building something beyond just one shop. He wanted to create a brand, a company, something that would spread across the cities and countries. But with only small amount and small profit, that dream seemed far away. The 5 lakhs he had started with almost finished, used for rent, stock and expenses. He had no backup. That was when he decided it's time to take bigger risk. I cannot just survive, I have to grow. Prithvi started researching manufacturer directly. Instead of buying from wholesalers, he wanted to buy products from factories at cheaper rates with his own branding. But factories required a large order. They did not entertain small buyers. When Prithvi called them, many laughed at his small quantity request. Some even cut the call, but one factory owner agreed to meet him. Prithvi traveled overnight by train, carrying the small bag, wearing his only decent shirt. He sat on the factory office, nervous yet determined. The owner asked, young man, how much you can order? Prithvi swallowed hard and said, I don't have big money now, but if you trust me, I will prove myself. Give me one chance. Something in his eyes must have convinced the factory owner because he agreed to give him the small consignment on partial payment. Prithvi investment, the last of his saving, brought back his first lot of products with his own brand name printed on them. Prithvi Plastic, strong and reliable. That day, he displayed his own branded products in the shop was unforgettable. Customers were surprised. They asked, is this your brand? Prithvi smiled, proudly said, yes, that is my promise of quality. People trusted him, and slowly his brand product sold faster than others. Within 6 months, his brand name became in the town. Competitors were shocked. This was no longer just a shop, it was the start of a company. But little Prithvi didn't know the road ahead would not be smooth. With growth came bigger challenges, financial risk, competition from large companies, and emotional sacrifices that would test every bit of his courage. New dreams, new risk. Prithvi start a small brand. Prithvi Plastics was now in his own town. Customers liked the quality, and slowly shopkeepers from nearby areas began asking to buy from him. For the first time, he felt that his dream of building a company was not just an imagination, but he had planted a seed and it was growing. But growth needed more money. His small profit were not enough to expand. If he wanted to supply other shops and towns, he needed a larger production, bigger storage and transportation. He needed at least 10 lakhs more. Prithvi sat in his shop one night, staring at his notebook, Full of calculation, he whispered to himself, if I stay small, I will survive but never grow. If I take a loan, I may fail, but if I succeed, I can change my life forever. That night, he made a decision. He would take risk. The next morning, Prithvi walked into the bank with his business papers. He explained his ideas, his sales, and his dream of expanding, but the manager looked at him with a doubt. You are too young. Your business is too small. We cannot give us such a big loan without security. Prithvi felt crushed. He had no property to mortgage, no wealthy relatives to guarantee. For days, he went from bank to bank, hearing the same rejection again and again. Each rejection felt like a slap. Some manager even mocked him, saying, go find a job, business is not for everyone. But Prithvi was stubborn. He refused to give up. He changed his strategy. Instead of asking for a large loan, he applied smaller amounts from different banks and microfinance companies. He also convinced a few local investors by showing them the growing sales record. Piece by piece, he arranged enough funds to expand his production. It was not easy, but this was his first big lesson. Persistence can open the door that seemed locked. With the money, Prithvi rented a small warehouse and hired 2 workers. He invested more in stock, improved packaging, and started supplying to nearby towns. He bought a second-hand delivery van, painted it with his brand logo, and proudly drove it himself to make deliveries. People started noticing. Shopkeeper respected his dedication. Slowly, his production began appearing in 5 nearby towns. Every time he saw his logo on a product in some house, his heart filled with pride. He felt like he was finally on the right path. But success in business is never a straight line. Just when the things look stable, life threw a stone at him. A big company from the city noticed that Prithvi's brand was spreading. They entered his market with flashy advertisement, huge discounts, and aggressive salesmanning. Their products were cheaper because they had a bigger practice. Suddenly, many shopkeepers stopped buying from Prithvi and switched to the big brand. His sale dropped almost overnight. Prithvi was shaken. He felt like a small boat floating against a giant ship. His workers asked if they should leave because salaries were uncertain. His family started worrying, asking him to return to a safe job. For weeks, he barely slept. He walked alone at night, thinking, is this the end? Did I came this far only to be crushed by bigger players? But then he remembered the one thing that made him different: trust. He realized he could not fight big companies with money, but he could fight with the personal connections. Prithvi went back to his customers. Personally, he visited the shopkeepers, drank tea with them, listened to their problems, and assured them, I will always stand behind my products. If anything breaks, I will replace it myself. No big company will come to your door, but I will. Some shopkeepers were moved by his honesty and returned. Slowly, word spread again. Customers also started supporting him because they trusted his face more than any advertisement of strangers. His sales did not reach the old peak, but he survived. More importantly, he learned another rule: big players may have money, but small players can win in relationships. Just when the things began to stabilize, Prithvi faced another blow, this time from someone he trusted deeply. One of his workers, whom he had trained from scratch, suddenly left and started his own shop with copied version of Prithvi's brand. He even spread lies that Prithvi's product were failing in quality. The betrayal cut like a knife. It was not just about the business, but about trust. For 2 weeks, Prithvi felt broken. He questioned himself, why do people betray me? Why do I suffer even when I work with honesty? But one evening, his mother sat beside him and said gently, son, gold is tested in fire. The world is testing you. Don't let betrayal kill your spirit. Use it as a fuel. Those words reignited his fire. He wiped his tears and told himself, they can copy my products, but they cannot copy my spirit. He began to working harder, innovating better packaging and adding new product designs. Slowly, he won back to the customers. 2 years passed. By now, Prithvi's products were being sold in 3 districts. He had 10 workers, 2 delivery vans, and hundreds of shopkeepers buying from him. His turnover crossed 50 lakh a year. People in his town started calling him a young entrepreneur. But success came at a cost. Prithvi barely slept. He worked from dawn to midnight. He missed family function, lost the touch with friends, and often ate meals late night in his office. Sometimes loneliness surrounded him like a dark cloud. He asked himself, is this worth it? What is the meaning of success if I lose peace? But each time he saw his parents smile with pride, each time he heard a customer praise his brand, he felt like the sacrifices were worth it. He knew he was building something bigger than himself. One day, Prithvi got a call from a businessman in a city. The man he heard about Prithvi's brand and wanted to distribute in multiple districts. Prithvi's heart raced. This was the first chance to step outside his small region and enter the bigger market. The businessman had a condition: Prithvi had to produce in a much larger quantities, means big investment. Once again, he stood at the edge of risk. He had to either say to small and safe or take a leap into the large scale business. Prithvi thought about it for nights. He remembered the promise he made to himself a year ago, not to live in small, not to live ordinary. Finally, he decided to leap. He sold his shop, moved to city, and set up a bigger unit with rented machines. It was terrifying, but it was also the boldest step. The city was not kind. Unlike the small town, here competition was fierce. Competitors were tough negotiators. Payments were delayed. Expenses shot up. For the first 6 months, Prithvi's life was a nightmare. He lived in a rented room on an apartment, ate cheap foods, and sometimes he skipped meals to save money. There were nights when he cried silently, worrying about how does he made a worst mistake by leaving the comfort of a small town for success. But each morning he woke up with determination. He reminded himself, I did not come this far to give up now. Slowly, his hard work began to pay off. The distributor who had contacted him kept his promise and sales increased. His product began appearing in supermarkets. For the first time, people who never knew him were buying his brand. One year, Prithvi was invited to local business award ceremony in city. He was giving the Rising Entrepreneur Award. As he stood on the stage holding the trophy. His eyes searched for his parents in a small audience. His mother had tears of joy. His father has sparked with pride. At that moment, Prithvi felt all his sacrifices was worth it. But deep inside, he knew this was not the end. This was only the beginning of something much bigger. He had conquered the small towns and cities, but his dream was to go to global. And to reach that dream, he would have to face the biggest challenge of his life. That kind of could that break him completely or make him unstoppable. Prithvi had survived betrayal, rejection, and competition. He had built a name, expanded into city, and won recognition. Prithvi's move to the one city been risky. It was hard to survive there, but it had brought him recognition. His product now reached to supermarkets, small distributors, and even more corporate buyers. His turnover touched crores. For a young man who just started with 5 lakhs, it felt like a magic. But Prithvi knew the truth: magic was not real. Growth come with depth, pressure, and sleepless night. He had borrowed heavily to set up the factory, and every month the interest stared at him like a monster. For every smile on stage, there were nights of tears behind closed doors. Still, he kept going. He was not a boy who once sold buckets in a small shop. He was now an entrepreneur with employees, supplies, and distributors depending on him. Failure was not just about the losing money anymore, it was destroying the lives of those who trusted him. For a while, everything looked bright, but then a small cracks began to appear. A few larger customers delayed the payment, raw material prices shot up, a strike in the transport sector blocked the deliveries of vehicles. His accountant warned, "Sir, our cash flow is becoming dangerous. We must slow down our expansion." But Prithvi was stubborn. He wanted to grow faster, to capture the market before others did. If we slow down, competitors will crush us, he argued. So he borrowed again. He used loans, credit cards, and even borrowed from his friends. On the outside, his business looked like a rising rocket, but from inside, it was a balloon who was ready to burst. The collapse came suddenly. One of his biggest distributors, who owed him a huge payment, went bankrupt. Overnight, Prithvi lost crores, and there was no way to pay his suppliers, and he stopped sending raw materials. Production froze, workers protested because salaries were delayed, banks started calling for the loan repayments. Prithvi's phone rang non-stop, but he could not pick up. He sat in his office, staring at his brand logo on the wall, wondering if this was the end. One evening, he returned home and saw his mother crying silently. His father said, "Son, maybe this is a sign. You worked hard, but maybe you should stop before you lose everything." Those words stabbed him. Stop. After coming this far, after sacrificing so much, he could not accept it. But it was a moment. He also had a solution. He felt crushed between two stones, depth and failure. For weeks, he lived in darkness. He avoided friends, skipped meals, and sometimes walked aimlessly at night, wondering if the dream was not too big for him. Just when everything looked hopeless, Prithvi received a small lifeline. An NGO working in a rural development approached him. They wanted durable, low cost plastic products for villages. The order was not huge compared to his earlier business, but it was something bigger. Prithvi took it as a sign. He restarted production with a small order, paying his worker whatever the little he could. The joy of the faces gave him strength. Slowly, he began rebuilding. He spoke to the supplier honestly, promising delayed payments instead of running away. Some suppliers respected his courage and continued to support him. He cut his lifestyle to bare minimum, no restaurant, no luxury, just survival. It was the hardest phase of his life, but it also showed him who truly stood with him when everything collapsed. One night, sitting in his factory, Prithvi wrote his diary. Success is not about how fast you rise, it is about how strongly you stand when you fall. The collapse humbled him. It taught him that rapid growth without strong foundation was dangerous. It taught him that relationships were more valuable than money, and it reminded him why he had started in the first place. Not for fame, not for awards, but to create something real, something lasting. As he rebuilt, Prithvi made a painful sacrifices to life. He sold his cars, mortgaged his house, and even let go of some of his close friends who stayed during success but disappearing during failure. He became harder, sharper, and more focused, but in the storm, he also lost something precious. His personal life, relationship slipped away. He missed birthdays, weddings, and family dinners. He became a stranger to his own relatives. Sometimes he wondered if the price was too high. Yet, each time he looked at the workers feeding their family because of factory, he told himself, "I cannot stop. Their future is tied to mine." 2 years after collapse, finally, he being seeing stability again. His brand regained trust. The NGO order grew. The distributor joined cautiously. He cleared the path of debt. But the real turning point came from an unexpected place. One evening, a NRI businessman visiting India saw his products in the supermarket. He was impressed by the durability and design. He asked the manager, "Who makes this?" Within a week, Prithvi received a call. The NRA wanted to explore exporting his products abroad. Prithvi's heart raced. Export, global market. That was the dream he had buried in his heart for years. But the fear also gripped him. Was he ready? Could his small factory meet international standards? After nights of sleepless thinking, he said yes. It was his chance to step onto the global stage. Going global was not easy. Export required qualifications, higher quality checks, better packaging, and larger scale. Prithvi had to learn everything from scratch. International trade rules, shipping, foreign payments. Many times he felt like giving up. He failed in his first two export deals because of shipment delays. He lost money in currency conversion. He laughed at his meeting where foreign buyers doubted his small company. But each failure only made him stronger. He built a team, studied higher, and slowly adapted. Within 2 years, he managed to send his first successful container to products abroad. When he saw his brand name in foreign store for the first time, he felt the tear in his eyes. From a boy with 5 lakhs in a small town to a businessman whose products were reaching to another country, it felt unreal. But entertaining the global market also meant entering a battlefield. A big multinational companies with billion-dollar budgets were his competitors. They could crush him anytime. Instead of fighting them directly, Prithvi chose a smarter plan. He focused on niche market, places where people want affordable but durable products. He built relationships with small distributors abroad, but like he had done in his hometown years ago. He used trust as his weapon again. This strategy worked slowly. His export grew, not huge but steady. Prithvi's story began appearing in newspapers. Small town boy takes the Indian brand global. The headlines read he was invited to speak at a business conference. Young entrepreneur started what he was doing and they were copying him. But he never let a fame blind him. He still remembered the night of collapse, the betrayals, and the tear of his mother. He told himself, stay grounded, the journey is not over. Even as his business touched new heights, Prithvi felt a void inside. He realized that he had no close personal relationship left. Friends had drifted away, and he had never had time for love. Sometimes sitting on his luxurious office, he felt lonely. One night, his father said softly, son, success is sweet, but don't forget to live. Those words echoed in his eyes and his heart. He realized, but building a global company should not mean destroying his inner peace. He promised himself to find balance. Prithvi had collapsed, rebuilt, sacrificed, and finally stepped onto the global stage. His products were now being exported, his brand respected, the story inspiring thousands, but the journey was not yet complete. Ahead lay the final chapter, the stage he would rise to being a global trader, to building a global empire. Here, the vision turned into legacy. Prithvi stood on the terrace of his company headquarters, staring at the glittering skyline of Mumbai. It had been years since he had walked onto the tiny rented office with just 5 lakhs in his pocket, a shaky dream in his heart, and only two people who believed in him. Now his company was global name. Deals poured from New York, Singapore, London, and Dubai. But success had not come without its storm. This was not about Prithvi's story, this was beginning of something greater. Prithvi's company had grown beyond his imagination, with international investors backing him and clients trusting his products. The future looked unstoppable, but the success came new kinds of battle. The higher you climb, the stronger the winds blow. The media started watching his every move. Newspaper praised him one day and criticized him the next. Competitors who once ignored him were now launching copycat products just to weaken his brand. Even some employees who had grown rich with his company started turning greedy, demanding more and plotting against him. But Prithvi had learned one thing: success is not about avoiding battles, it's about standing strong when battles come. One of the closest partner, Arvind, who had been since early stages, secretly started to planning to leave. Worse, Arvind was negotiating with rival companies to sell sensitive information. When Prithvi discovered this, it shook him. He remembered the nights when he and Arvind had eaten street food together, dreaming to making it big. Now greed had taken over. Instead of lashing out, Prithvi called Arvind to his office. Why, Arvind? We built this together, Prithvi asked quietly. Arvind avoided his eyes. I gave everything to this company, Prithvi, but somewhere I feel invisible. Maybe I deserve more. Prithvi could have destroyed him legally, but instead he chose a different path. You are free, Arvind, he said calmly. Take what you think deserve. But remember, trust once broke, that never returned. Arvind left with him. A storm of gossip spread in the industry. Competitors thought this was the end of Prithvi's empire. But what they didn't know, that betrayal made him stronger. Instead of slowing down, Prithvi decided to expand globally. His dreams was not just to build a company, but to build a movement that could inspire entrepreneurs everywhere. He launched products in Africa where local business struggled the resources. He set up affordable training centers in small towns so young people could learn skills and become self-reliant. Money was no longer his goal. The real goal was impact. And when the impact became his driving force, the world began to notice. But success often invites the darkest storms. One night, as Prithvi was returning from a late business meeting, his car was crashed by unknown vehicle. Someone wanted him gone. Later, investigation revealed that powerful businessman lobby, threatened by his rise, had planned to eliminate him. That night, Prithvi barely escaped with his life. His driver, quick thinking, saved him, but the incident left him shaken. For the first time in years, Prithvi questioned everything. Is this all worth it? Money, fame, power, at the cost of peace? He spent nights away, replaying his journey from 5 lakhs to this point. He remembered his parents' faces, the tears when the first failed, the smiles when he succeeded, the loneliness of betrayal, and the thrill of winning. And in the silence, he found the answer. Yes, it was worth it, because he was not building this for himself. He was building from everyone who had believed that this success was impossible. Instead of living in fear, Prithvi became bolder. He strengthened his company's security, but more importantly, he strengthened his vision. He launched a global foundation, the Rise Initiative, to support small entrepreneurs in developing countries. He pledged 20% of personal wealth to fund it. People who once saw him as just a businessman now saw him as a leader, a visionary. His enemies who tried to break him had now watched as the world celebrated him. Years later, Prithvi returned to the same small town where he had once borrowed 5 lakhs to begin his journey. The streets looked the same, but people looked him at differently. He was no longer a struggling boy, he was now the symbol of hope. He visited the old tea stop where he used to sit and plan. The stall owner, now much older, recognized him and said with tears, Son, I always knew you would do something big. By the time Prithvi turned 50, his company was one of the top global players. But more than money, his true legacy was millions of lives had touched. Students in villages who once had no hope were now running their own startups, business of training centers. Small businesses across the world had survived because of their foundation support. And a story starting from 5 lakhs and rising against betrayal, failures, and even death threats became a story told in classrooms, boardrooms, and homes. The final reflection on his 25th anniversary of business, a journalist asked him, Prithvi, what is your biggest achievement? Prithvi paused, smiled, and replied, My biggest achievement is not that I became rich. My biggest achievement is that I proved one thing. No matter how small you start, no matter how many storms you face, if you refuse to give up, you will rise. Success is not about money, success is about creating something that will live longer than you. The audience gave him a standing ovation. Prithvi had completed his journey from 5 lakhs to global success, not just a businessman, but a symbol of courage, resilience, and hope. And so, his story was not the end, but a beginning for every dreamer who had dared to rise.